My name is John.
I'm Drew.
And we're reviewing Extremely Wicked,
Shockingly Evil,
and Vile. I feel like there should be another word there.
It's a long title and not
parallelism, but it doesn't.
Did you like it or not?
I liked the movie. I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was really interesting.
It was okay. Could have been better.
Describe it.
Self-indulgent.
Hyphenated, nice.
Yeah, manipulative.
That was all hyphenated.
Yeah, hyphenated manipulative.
Pseudo self-indulgent slice of life biography.
Nice slice of
A single mother gets gaslighted by boyfriends for like a decade.
Art.
It's not doing anything.
Stab it.
Movie starts in media res with Liz and Ted in jail.
And she's like, do you remember the night that we met? And he's like, of course I do.
And that's when we jump into like the beginning of the story.
The past is 1974. He meets Liz. He's like, hey, Liz, you got a kid? That's cool with me. I love single moms. So they get together. She wakes up the next morning and she's like, oh my god, my child is missing and he is missing. What's going on? And he's like, you like pancakes, sweetheart? Smack the pancakes down. Like, is taking care of the daughter.
Ted starts this very loving relationship with Liz. You get news interviews or like news broadcasts of like 2 women went missing in Lake Sasquatchahana.
He gets caught, pulled over by a cop, and the cop is like, you missed 2 stop signs. And he's like, yeah, sorry, I just was trying to make out whether you were a cop or not. And he's like, there's a weird bag in your car, so they arrest him. And then he goes home, and he's like, hey, yo, Liz, what's up? And she's like, you asshole, were you gonna, like, tell me about this? And he's like, oh, I wasn't gonna tell you about it because it's not true.
He goes through a trial. He thinks he's gonna, like, get out of it. He's like, it'll be fine. They totally trumped up all the charges. It's all circumstantial evidence. And it's like, you're convicted. He gets transferred to Colorado for more murders he's suspected of.
And then he, like, jumps out of the window to escape. He's gone for about a week, and they catch him again. So he escapes, and this time he's gone for like a year.
That's when it cuts to them in Florida, where he's in some college bar with like 2 college girls. And then it's like, cut to next morning, like, 2 women found dead in Chi Omega sorority. 3 others assaulted. And then he gets caught again in a car. He tries the same trick he tried to get out of. He used to try to get out of getting caught the first time. And he just punches the police officer in the gut and runs away.
And then it cuts to, like, Liz getting a phone call from him. And he's like, hey, so I'm going to get caught, and it's going to be bad, but I just wanted to let you know first. And I kind of struck a deal where I was like, don't break the news till I tell my lovely girlfriend that I haven't spoken to in a year.
The rest of the movie is pretty much consumed by the trial in Florida.
Sheldon Cooper's there, and he's like, he's guilty.
Yeah.
John Malkovich is like, you'd be a good lawyer. And then Zac Efron's like, my boys, my legal counsel want me to plead guilty, but I ain't gonna do that shit.
And he's like, I'm a better lawyer than these public defenders. I can save myself. And then he doesn't. He just makes a real ass of himself in the courtroom.
Verdict comes in. He is guilty, even though he didn't think he would be guilty. Cut to the future. It's 1989. It's the day before Ted Bundy will be executed for these crimes. And Liz comes to see him. She's like, I told the cops about you, and I felt so guilty about it because I didn't think you were actually guilty for the longest time. So, like, you need to tell me the truth so that I can, like, clear my conscience of this.
And it's this really intense moment where he, like, writes out hacksaw in the window.
Like, the sounds of the hacksaw over it.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was very...
Ugh.
And then she, like, almost is about to throw up, like, throws the files at the cops, runs out.
And then she walks away, and that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Clapping back at
Hey, go.
The original script, you don't know it's Ted Bundy until the end of the movie. Which would make, I think that, like, the whole movie kind of, like, paint in a different light.
It would work a lot better.
Yeah,
I think, I'm just going to say this now, about 80% of my problems would fade away if that was the case.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of, like, ambiguity that is, like, undercut by the fact that you know that it's Ted Bundy.
My favorite scene is when he is caught and he's in the jail cell in Florida. He's just, like, sitting being his, like, cocky self that he has been the whole time. And this guy comes into his cell and he's like, No, 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 no. And then Ted's like, hey, la, la, la. They're just like kind of
The
talking.
DA?
Yeah. He was like, you don't know who I am, like, do you? And he's like starting to talk shit to him, and Ted like tries to off-play him with his charm, which we've seen the whole time, right? And so there's this picture of this shark that was drawn by Liz's daughter, and he's like, that's a whatever shark, it's got a tail, and he's like, I don't give a shit, and he like pulls it and like rips it in half, and then he stares him down, and he's like, Florida is the buckle of the Delft Battle.
What?
You want
Utah lost you, Colorado, or Utah gave you away, Colorado lost you, and Florida's gonna kill you, bud. And then at that moment, he like has these cops running. He's like, Ghost Recon symbols. And these cops run in, and they like pin him down, and they take his teeth samples, which becomes important later. It's like the main piece of evidence that convicts him is his bite marks.
She is like fanatic about him, like all women are in this film.
Yeah,
which makes sense because it's Zac Efron, but then they later they later show footage.
They were like, he's not guilty. Did you see him in High School Musical?
With Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy, like, yeah, I can get it. He's charismatic, yeah. But like they show actual footage of Ted Bundy at the end of the movie, and it's like, how the did this dude like? But yeah, so he struck up this relationship with this like ex-coworker who is like madly in love with him, and he's like in the middle of the investigation, he's paid off this guard, and they're just like against a vending machine, and yeah, you get to see Zac Efron's butt. You get to see Zac Efron's butt a lot in this movie.
Yeah, you do.
And he is still. She's like, "Do you still love Liz?" And he's like, "She's not here." And she's like, "Do you still love her?" And she's like, "She's not here." And she's like, "What about me?" And she's like, and he goes, "You're here. You stayed with me through all of this." And it feels like a very human moment for like this inhuman person.
See, no, I disagreed. I thought that was the...
It's like incredibly manipulative, and you can see it.
No, and I thought that it wasn't read as human, it was read as super manipulative because he says the exact same thing there that he said to Liz earlier in the beginning of the film. That was like one of the few things that I thought really shined where they showed him.
I didn't even connect that. He proposes to her afterwards, but he's like, "You're here with me now."
He had this weird guilt complex where he like... The prime example of this where like it actually happens in the most real moment is that interview where they're like, "Are you guilty?" And he's like laughs and he's like, "What?" He's like, "What? Guilty of stealing cards when I was like 5?" And it's like, what do you That's the thing that they showed the interview at the end, right? That's the thing that he actually did where he like refuses to say he's not guilty immediately. Yeah, it's a very weird off-putting
it's like that scene in the prison when that like detective comes in and he's like, "Did you ever go to Colorado?" And he's like he just like refuses. He just flat out refuses to answer. There was a lot of moments where it just like felt wrong, but like there's just the sheer charisma of like the following conversation kind of like drew you away from it.
By that,
did you just put on chains?
No, those were there.
You motherfucker! How dare you? How dare you?
The reason why I don't like the film is supposed to be based off of the autobiography that Liz wrote about her life with Ted Bundy, right? And that's a very compelling movie idea. But the problem is that the movie contradicts that by showing us moments of just Ted Bundy, of like where we follow him around, rather than just seeing her perspective. It kind of bounced around between what it wanted to be. It ended up not doing enough vilification of Ted Bundy as a person until the very end of the film where it kind of didn't matter. Yeah. Like, I wanted more systematic Ted Bundy is bad. And what you brought up, where the director originally like didn't want to tell you who it was, that would have made the movie work.
I'm conflicted because like I want to see that version of the movie where like you don't know it's Ted Bundy, but also like I like the movie enough like as it is, like as it stands. Like because I was talking about it off camera, but like because I had those feelings of like knowing it's Ted Bundy but having like these sympathetic thoughts through my suspension of disbelief.
See, I didn't. I was just upset the whole time.
Oh.
I was just like, are you
See, there's your problem. I suspended my disbelief and you didn't. And because it shows you the coin of one side, like the false humanity, but also like the blatant inhumanity of Ted Bundy.
Like the idea is to show like this other side of the story that we haven't seen. Like we've seen the biographies and all these things that like, oh, he was like a mass killer, blah 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 blah. But like, what about the people who were integral to his life? And so that's why it's an adaptation of this biography of like this woman who's greatly involved with him, but it refuses to stick to the guns of that. And it needs more like oomph and more like, ooh, Ted Bundy factor to like make it work, or at least the director thinks that for some reason. So it goes to these scenes that she's not involved in and like abandons its mission statement, and then it gets muddled and confusing.
Yeah, I mean, agree to disagree. You feel like the deception, like through her, like you feel the manipulation, like in the scenes that she does have with him, like through the phone calls and the calls and.
How, I guess, how would the movie be fixed if you didn't know that it was Ted Bundy?
Say that his name is Dennis Rader.
Did you just make that up?
No, that's BTK. That's Bind, Torture, Kill.
Okay.
That's one of the most notorious serial killers of all time, but his name isn't known, right? You don't know Dennis Rader like you know Ted Bundy. So whether or not Dennis Rader did it is a much more compelling story about, oh, Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer versus like a name that you don't know. And I think that thing of changing his name or taking his name out of it and then being like, by the way, this is what this was, is a much more compelling film that takes you on the journey that the director was trying to take you on and convinces me much more than like me being upset that people aren't mad at Ted Bundy the whole time.
There's one part of me that feels like if that happened and like at the end it was like, guess what, it was Ted Bundy the whole time. Like I feel like that's almost like a cheap gotcha.
Bottom line is, it does not vilify him enough, and for me, regardless of how good of a film it is, that's a problem. That is like a socio problem that overweighs the impact or like the goodness or greatness of the film.
Do you think that moralizing is actually happening in a lot of this media? Do you think this movie is doing that? And do you think that is like ultimately a problem?
I would say yes by accident. I think it's moralizing him on accident because it's trying to vilify him. But again, this is my main problem with the film. Because it doesn't pick one or the other things, it ends up like kind of being a coward. And like in being a coward, it shows like the good side of him without being like, oh, this was overtly manipulative.
Yeah, I think there definitely has been a more recent like fetishization.
See, we both can't talk tonight.
Are we too drunk? Of like serial killers, but I think that has always happened, at least on a minor level. And with Manson, you know, like he had his own.
Like it's like whenever somebody is like minorly attractive to like medium attractive, and like has persuasion skills, but is also a killer, like it's fine.
The one of the most like disturbing, I think, moments in the film is when they're interviewing like the young girls.
I'm an attorney today.
I get very scared, but you know, he's also really dreamy.
He's just so handsome. I don't think he could do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the You're like, again, you're put into Liz's perspective of thinking like he couldn't do it, just because she's like so clouded by her own bias. But then you also know like it's Ted Bundy. Yeah, it's definitely strange as a film, but I liked its strangeness. It's a pretty solid 4 out of 5 for me, which I guess equates to 8 out of 10.
I'm gonna give it 5 out of 10, which is up from when I gave it on Letterboxd.
I'm glad I could raise your rating of it. I love you.
I love you too.
Cheers to the judicial system.
Honestly, yeah.
Cheers to John Malkovich getting his own reality judge show. My name's John Grosny. If you want to see more of me, click on this little box boy.
And I'm Drew, and if you want to see more of me from my past, my lurid past, click here.
Grosny Productions, please like, subscribe, donate to our PayPal. Make a charitable.
Not even a Patreon? Come on.
Build us a monument, whatever you feel like.
Yeah, I could do with a monument to my greatness.
Just to Drew, not to the channel, not
to
any of the millions of hard workers that work on this.
All the
video.
viewers are here for me, right? I'll feel really, really sad.
I'll shave my facial hair.
No. Don't. Just like and subscribe, please. We don't.